Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we're going to be talking about top 5 mutant champions in game currently right now, December 2019. So I have done the videos for most of the classes already. Mutant and Mystic are the last two left, which are going to go live today. And yeah, so basically we can start with spot number 5. Let's just jump straight right in it. And let me first sort everything out right about here. And in spot number 5, I will probably currently place in Sunspot. Now, Sunspot is a champion I was quite harsh on initially, and again, still I maintain a fair bit of my criticism I had about him coming into the contest, but at the same time, the small bits of utility that he does provide to be extremely useful. That perfect block thing is extremely useful, especially when dealing with champions in 6.3 and their huge health pools and their huge attack. Having that perfect block ability and having great damage output, letting you finish out these fights quickly is quite an important. And definitely he's also one of the more kind of fun champions to play around with. He has excellent damage output, he has a quirky playstyle, those perfect blocks feel great, lots of incinerates, lots of debuffs, huge critical hits of special 2, and all that put together kind of make him a champion you really do want to play as much as you can, pretty much. But again, that being said, he's not the most versatile champion by far. He really only has pretty much ability to inflict a lot of debuffs on opponent, incinerate immunity, ability to have the perfect block, which is quite useful, but there is not much to it past that point. Aside from damage, and there is a lot of damage available on this guy though. But yeah, so take him for what you will. He's definitely one of the champions people kind of love. People enjoy him. He definitely has a kind of huge following in the game, and he's proving himself to be quite useful in game overall, especially in stuff like power shield, and also the fact that he has this kind of like ability to gain power passively without any buffs, and that is becoming more and more valuable with nodes like power reversal, fisticuffs, so on and so forth active in the contest. So even though he doesn't seem to be doing a whole lot in terms of different matchups he can cover, but he's a champion that he does whatever he does really well, effectively, quickly, and definitely makes the game feel quite fun. And I see him quite present in a lot of endgame content these days as well, so definitely have to give it up to him. I was kind of like crossed with a choice basically that many people are these days, whether to rank him up or rank up Havok. And I kind of slanted slightly towards Havok, mainly because of the fact that I already had ranked up Wasp. Also the fact that Havok is a bit more suicide friendly, because Sunspot definitely is not a suicide friendly champion. And there were like few more reasons, like Havok was already awakened, so I didn't have to use my mutant gem, so on and so forth. So Havok slightly won out my personal rank up decision, but I can easily see Sunspot being taken up over Havok, or again Havok being taken up over Sunspot. But be that as it may, I still think he is a really great addition to the contest this year. Super fun champion, great damage output, moderate use in endgame, and I believe he deserves a spot in top 5. Now, Sunspot being put aside, we're going to go to another new champion that we just mentioned actually, and that will be Havok. Now, Havok is, well, first and foremost an excellent defender, but his offensive capabilities are also extremely useful. First of all, Havok, being a crazy good defender, also is an answer to himself on defense. So whenever you encounter big Havoks, you kind of can be safe taking in your own Havok and just playing your game, because you're safe from all of that detonation damage. And again, all that being said, Havok has excellent damage on his level 3. He has quite a bit of energy and crit resistance. He has this slow passive power gain, which can be useful quite a lot of times. He also has ability to kind of like place these plasmas on opponent, and then when you activate thermal feedback while heavy attack, you can deal quite a bit of damage over time and can play him somewhat like Omega Red to a degree even. That definitely kind of opens a new dimension of utility for the guy, as well as the fact that his medium attacks and some of his heavy attack bits are projectile energy attacks, and they do not make contact, so he's great counter for stuff like Korg, he's great counter for Electros, so on and so forth. So he's one of those champions where maybe initially you might not see all that much going on for him, but he actually has quite a bit of reach when it comes to providing some sort of additional piece of utility in endgame content in situations where you maybe wouldn't expect it as much. Now, one thing I definitely can say about Havok though is that he's much more of a marathon runner. He's not a champion that you can take in to finish out fights quickly, because typically for larger opponents it will require you to slowly but surely build up to your level 2 or 3 and take your while kind of like killing the opponents, versus Sunspot, for instance, can do it quite a bit quicker with his power gain mechanics, so on and so forth. So Sunspot is friendlier champion from your day-to-day questing, and Havok likely will not be a champion you kind of simply bring in to clear a path in a random quest. He's more of a specialty champion, a champion that will deal with specialty encounters, because blitzing through opponents in a flash is not his strong suit despite his appearance. But again, that being said, Havok, incredibly solid champion. I think still relatively underrated when it comes to his offensive uses. One of the kind of like best damage level 3s in the game, which is also extremely fun to shoot off. But that will be about it for today, and now we can move on to spot number 3. And in spot number 3, I think I'm about to insult a lot of people's feelings once again, but hey, you know, it happens. It's my list, my opinion. Domino is probably the third best mutant champion in the game. Now, we all know Domino, we all love Domino. For me personally, signature kind of like one Domino's most kind of defining trait is she is arguably the best defender, man, just because all of that fun and interactive passive damage you typically take with her, and all of those evades and that AI and tricky to parry at times, and there's just so many things that can go wrong at times and all of your abilities may fail. I hate fighting Domino with anyone except like Quake and Black Widow's energy. If I have Quake and Black Widow's energy, I'm perfectly fine and confident going into a Domino fight. But in any other kind of conditions, I absolutely hate fighting her. But obviously that's not the reason why so many people love her. The reason why so many people love her is her incredible damage output potential. She can produce some of the nuttiest bleeds in the game with some decent RNG. Obviously, if you are also running like a full Trinity synergy with Massacre and Red Hulk, then her stun duration lasts forever. She can completely ignore stuff like Limber. That also makes her a great Labyrinth of Legends option, combined with her great damage output, and her heavy attack Incinerate method can just plow through opponents quite quickly. And that is kind of the big trait of Domino, because she is not particularly versatile champion. She doesn't have any immunity, she doesn't have any power control, she doesn't have I don't know, heal block, this and that and that. What she does have is quite an absurd damage potential, which to a certain level kind of helped you pretty much ignore most of the nodes. Kind of like you went in a quest even in 6.1, you looked at all or nothing, don't care, opponents are gonna die before they reach 3 bars of power, or opponents has this node, don't care, they're gonna be dead in minutes anyways, so on and so forth. But all being put together, and I think it's kind of showing more so in 6.2 and 6.3, where she is seeing significant drop in her usage because the nodes are becoming more and more specific. And unfortunately, kind of like the lack of immunities and the lack of specific utility shining through quite a bit more, at least in my opinion. I haven't seen all that much footage of her in 6.2 and 6.3, definitely the trickiest parts, because the quests are designed so kind of diverse that there are very few champions that can reliably go through most of the path. You'd have to be like Quake or Ghost or something of the sort, and unfortunately Domino just can't quite reach up there to that degree, because as I mentioned before, she doesn't have immunity, she doesn't have like a reliable great reduction of opponents' abilities like Quake or Archangel would, so on and so forth. So she does suffer quite a bit from the quest nodes and kind of intended obstacles that are laid out by Kabam for you to clear this quest. Now, there are still definite places where you can use her and rely on the damage output, but I think they are becoming less and less frequent to a degree. Now, all that being said, she's still a fantastic champion. I also do believe that she's possibly one of the top 5 champions to take up as your first rank 5 5-star champion, because everything up until 6.2 she's gonna absolutely destroy when it comes to story content. She's also great for quite a bit of variant stuff. She's great for Alliance War, she's great for Labyrinth, and she is one of those champions that you do want to bring in day to day, quest after quest, and just completely destroy your opponents. Now, that was a teammate calling me. I'm gonna call him back in a few minutes, but we are going to be moving on to spot number 2 now that we go spoken about Domino in excess already. Spot number 2 is going to go to Namor. Now, Namor, again, many people probably will not like him in this position, and I can definitely see why, because again, when you take him for his base abilities, he is not that impressive. His damage output isn't the greatest thing in the world. Again, he's not the champion you're going to want to bring in to clear most of your quest lanes, and when it comes to utility, there is one. There's only one important bit of utility, and that is in his signature ability. Basically, while you're attacking opponent, you're able to reflect all of the damage that opponent would take, that you would take, you reflect it back to your opponent, and that can be extremely potent and useful, knowing how much Kabam loves all of these fun and interactive nodes where you basically die just for trying to play the game, and Namor is pretty much a perfect weapon to counter against it. Now, that being said, still, it's not exactly necessary or needed in many different scenarios. However, when the quest calls upon him, he is one of those champions that is vital for a roster to have, in my opinion, and sooner or later, pretty much everybody should invest in this champion. Max sig him, take him to rank 4 or 5, depends on you, but because he's one of those champions where it's much more important to have a high signature level than that rank 5 or rank 4. A few more kind of cliff notes of Namor and his usability obviously do include the fact that he can deal with, to a degree, with pretty much all of damage over time nodes, because while you are maintaining your aggressive kind of a manner of playing, and if AI is being cooperative to a degree, you can kind of squeeze through pretty much any fights like Biohazard, Freezer Burn, Clapback, Bleed, what have you. You will take quite a bit of damage, but you will not typically bleed out from them if you maintain aggressive enough. So whilst he might not be the best option for a lot of it, he can kind of lend a hand if your roster is short, for instance, on champions that are Incinerate immune. All of that being said, there are a few more kind of redeeming qualities for Namor. One of that would be his heal, especially when you combine it with Suicide Masteries, because if you have Suicide Masteries active, you can keep attacking opponent, and every combo you land an opponent, basically heal up 1 to 2% of your health while willpower. The way it works more or less works out as you still keep the debuffs from Suicide Masteries. However, while you're attacking the opponent's taking the damage for you, but since you have the debuffs active, willpower is still healing you. So for any period of time while you are continuously striking the opponent, you are actually healing up, and opponent's taking some extra bit of damage. And so there are quite a bit of kind of interesting interactions with all of that, and that definitely makes Namor extremely useful. And again, he's somewhat a one-trick pony, but that one trick works in multitude different occasions, and he is capable of doing quite a bit. Obviously, we cannot also ignore his level 3, his Fury, which is massive. The fact that you can spam 2-3 level 3s in a row, and then pretty much finish all of the fight once you actually do get enraged. But again, let it be known, let it be said that damage is not the thing that makes Namor special. It 100% is the signature ability. The damage potential is accessible easier, more consistently, faster, and more reliably in many different champions. Many different champions just do it a lot better. He has potential for some insanely crazy damage, but it's not that easy to time, it's not that quick to access, and it's sometimes fairly awkward to kind of like position and time everything perfectly. So damage is a great plus that this character can have with his enrage modes and with his furies, but the most kind of unique bit about him is the ability to reflect all of the damage. And this is one of those abilities, in my opinion, that the bigger the contest gets, the more BS nodes we get, the more fun and interactive fights we have, the more valuable this ability will have. So he might not be as good of a rank up for smaller accounts. Like I mentioned before, for instance, Domino is a great rank up for small accounts just because of how much she can do and how easy she makes the content feel. Namor is definitely a greater, better rank up, in my opinion, for larger accounts with established rosters already. And that's why Namor goes to spot number 2. And spot number 1 still is Omega Red. Now, Omega Red has been in spot number 1 for a while, pretty much ever since he came out. And there are really good reasons why. Now, I am not personally particularly keen on Omega Red's playstyle. I tried quite a bit, and it just never really properly grew on me. But again, that all being said, he is a phenomenal champion with Suicide Masteries, and that is one of the things to keep in mind. I do not particularly rate him or like him without Suicide Masteries, because it feels like night and day while you're playing the character, because your ramp up takes a lot longer, it's a lot more difficult, and with that the fights take longer and it just feels a lot more awkward, and you kind of get a completely different feel of the character. If you imagine comparing Omega Red with and without Suicides, it's kind of imagine using Human Torch on, I don't know, Agent Venom with class disadvantage and him shrugging off all your debuffs, or using him against Mephisto where you can just stand next to the opponent and you gain bazillion smolders. There's two completely different quality fights, two completely different quality feels. So my honest opinion is, if you do not run Suicide Masteries frequently, do not rank up this champion. However, if you do, he can be an absolute powerhouse in terms of his killing speed, in terms of his utility, his immunities, the fact that he cannot take any damage from his tentacle hits, so he can bypass stuff like Magic's Limbo, he can bypass stuff like Korg's Reflect damage, Electrode's Reflect damage. Also, his debuffs cannot be shrugged off if you have plenty of spores on an opponent. That's extremely useful when facing stuff like Masochism, or again Korg, or I don't know, even Agent Venom, Kingpin, you name it. They can't shrug it off. It just feels great to have that kind of set of confidence and reliability. He's pretty much a definition of a champion that benefits a lot from an aggro playstyle. If you are comfortable in putting pressure to the opponent, getting them to the corner as quick as possible, smacking their block a fair bit, timing your heavy attacks on time to maintain the spore count, so on and so forth. And the key aspect of using Omega Red well is baiting out opponent's special attacks in timely manner and not letting your spores drop off. Now, Omega Red is quite dependent, I would say, on Sabretooth synergy, because Sabretooth synergy does make, again, this character feel quite a bit more overpowered than you would feel without it, because with Sabretooth synergy you build up spores a lot quicker and they drop off quite a bit slower. Therefore you have much bigger window of kind of like indecisiveness, or maybe some slip ups, or when you don't bait the special out immediately, you still have a fair decent chance of recovering and maintaining a high spore count on opponent, which is vital in order to maintain your damage output. Fully synergized Omega Red is actually one of the fastest champions to take up stuff like Realm of Legends, so on and so forth. And I actually did a Labyrinth of Legends run with Omega Red as well to kind of prove that he's sustainable and he can actually work in fights where you can't constantly parry opponents. And yeah, he is definitely a great champion, a lot to be happy about in there. The poison immunity, 90% bleed immunity. In fact, you kind of want to place bleeds on him. That also makes up for quite a lot of great matchups when you're dealing with biohazard lanes, when you're fighting Morning Stars or some other opponents, which can quite easily place a bleed on you, and you can kind of capitalize on that. But all of that being said, in my opinion, again, it might not be popular opinion, he might be slowly losing a bit of ground in the latest chapter of Act 6. But that being said, he was still greatly important for 6.2. He's still present in Alliance War, he's still present in Alliance Quest. He's also one of those champions that's absolutely fantastic to play your day-to-day quest clearing, because he can destroy quest fights so quickly. And so in my opinion, he is the best mutant champion currently in the game. Now that we have covered all of my personal top 5, just quickly reminded, it was Sunspot, Havok, Domino, Namor, and Omega Red. We can actually give out a few decent shoutouts. Now, Colossus recently had a rework, and that has made Colossus into a really solid powerhouse with a really kind of like sturdy, huge chunks of armor. He has quite a bit of utility with immunity to bleed, immunity to incinerate, immunity to cold snap. He's also armor break immune versus all opponents except tech, which can come quite in handy. Now his damage has been kind of like amped up also quite incredibly, and in ideal conditions this guy will provide you with extremely sustainable and kind of like a powerful tool. I actually have started using rank 4 Colossus for certain lanes in IQ map 7, and he could potentially inevitably go up to rank 5 at some point, because yeah, he's worth it now. He's good, he's actually good. Colossus is good. That was definitely a great buff in this year, and props to it. Works out well. He also fits quite well with several decent kind of like good synergy partners, and I definitely enjoy this character a lot now. Now Archangel, as always, can be one of the best champions in game when you can bleed and poison opponents if there's nothing else impeding his progress. He is an absolute machine of destruction, and as the game kind of like progresses slowly, and we can see the beginnings of it, of the era of rank 3 6-star, so on and so forth, I think Archangel is going to be one of those champions that still will be able to keep up with rank 3 and maybe even rank 4 6-star champions and their appropriate content as a maxed out 5-star. Therefore it is within my plans this year to take this guy up to rank 5 as well at some point, because what he does great, and if you use him for his niche specific uses to be able to counter specific matchups, I believe that he's going to be able to perform for quite a bit further in the game than most champions will, just like a 4-star Archangel was able to carry you through the content even up until like the very end level content. So I do believe that it might be a good time to invest in Archangels in quite near future, because he is still a fantastic answer to many different troublesome problem fights. And last couple shoutouts is gonna go to Iceman. Iceman is a champion as ever solid. Never been my favorite champion because he's a bit of a simpleton in my opinion. It's kind of like hit, don't get hit, spam whichever special attack and you're good kind of thing. But at the same time, having triple immunities, bleed, poison, incinerate, and also having access to cold snap, being able to tank some special attacks definitely has his uses, and he is a really solid character to acquire quite early on in the game, and he's one of those champions that will actually help you to become uncollected as well, for instance. So Iceman is definitely a solid rank up option. And lastly, one of my personal favorites, wish I kind of would trust her a bit more and play her a bit more, but I do absolutely rate Emma Frost highly. I love playing her. I think she's cool. I think she has quite a lot of quirky mechanics. Her ability to bypass a wade while a telepath form is also really useful, as well as her heavy attacks in diamond form that give basically opponent no power whatsoever. Have proved to be extremely useful. So I do love my Emma Frost. I'm happy I ranked her up, and I am kind of willing to find more use for her and actually rely on this champion a bit more in future. But that will pretty much do for today, I believe. That will be it for my shoutouts as well. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. So with the Mutant class being done now, we only have Mystics left, and yeah, I will upload that a bit later today. See you guys.